and welcome back to the Parents at Work podcast, a podcast for parents who want to succeed at work while also raising children. We are back after a bit of a hiatus where I, Lori Mihalich-Levin, and my wonderful husband, Jason Levin,
hello,
took an 8,153-mile car trip across the country, and we took a few months off of recording this podcast, so we're very delighted to be back. And we're also happy to talk about national parks with anyone who cares to discuss that topic. Again, I'm Lori Mihalich-Levin. I'm a healthcare lawyer. I'm a founder of a program called Mindful Return that helps employers retain their new parent top talent. And I'm mama to two wonderful redheaded boys. I'm, of course, joined today by my co-host and amazing husband, Jason Levin.
Thank you, Lori. I am proud to be Lori Mihalich-Levin's husband. I founded Ready, Set, Launch LLC 10 years ago, where I help executives make career and retirement transitions, get the promotion, and grow their professional services practice. I'm also the author of the upcoming book, Relationships to Infinity, The Art and Science of Keeping in Touch.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. That book is probably our fourth child, right? We have two human kids and two books.
It is our fourth child.
Excellent. So, as you know, we turn to a different industry or sector in this podcast and interview moms and dads in that role. And today we are so excited to be interviewing two amazing moms who are CEOs. And then we're going to be turning to some CEO dads. So first we have with us Christian Nunes.
Christian Nunes, MBA, MS, LCSW, became the national president for the National Organization for Women, NOW, in August of 2020. She was previously appointed vice president by the board in May 2019. As the second African-American president in the organization's history, the youngest person of color and the youngest president in more than 40 years, she's leading the organization through an intersectional lens, bringing a diverse coalition of grassroots activists to work against structural sexism and racism. Christian is also the founder of a behavioral health and consulting practice. Her expertise in mental health helps her to understand the direct experience of constituents and understand where policy and legislation is disconnected from the real experience of the people. Christian resides near Washington, D.C. with her 2-year-old son, CJ. In their spare time, they love to go on short day trips to parks, outdoor festivals, zoos, and farms in the DMV area.
Welcome, Christian. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting us and the National Organization for Women to represent CEO Moms today.
Wonderful.
And to complement Christian, we have Radhika Patil, who is the mom of 2 kids, 7 and 4, and is the co-founder and CEO at CradleWise. CradleWise is a Silicon Valley-based baby tech company. Their first product is a smart crib for babies. This crib has an integrated contactless baby monitor that senses the first signs of wake up and automatically starts rocking along with music to soothe the baby back to sleep, just like a parent. Radhika built the crib for her babies and is now on a sleep fitness mission to help other parents. She and her husband are co-founders at CradleWise. When not at work, Radhika enjoys hiking, gardening, and reading books with her kids. Radhika, welcome, and I love this product. Sleep is such an important topic for working parents.
Thank you so much for having me, Lori and Jason, and congratulations on taking time off for that trip, big trip.
Thank you. Yes, it was an amazing 4 weeks. I'll definitely do it again. So the way that we usually start off this podcast is to ask each of our guests to, in your own words, tell us a little bit about your own working parent story. Christian, would you like to kick us off with this?
Sure. This is exciting. So I started late having children. And so I have one son. He's 2 years old and 5 months. And I had him when I was 41. So I'll be turning 44 and he'll still be 2. So I always say that it was an interesting journey for me because I did not know, he was a beautiful blessing. And my husband and I were very excited to have him at the time. And so when he came along, it was really interesting. So I was like right at the height of my career. I had this business, behavioral health practice that I had for 15 years. And then I was merging into the role of becoming the vice president of the National Organization for Women. So when I started that role, he was 3 weeks old. It was a new change. We were moving across country.
Change everything all at once, Chris.
Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, everything shifted. Everything, life, relationships, everything shifting at the same time. It was quite interesting to, and on top of that, I was nursing, So I said, let me throw another curveball in. I'm a nurse as well. But it was quite the journey. I had a lot of supports, which I think would made it easier for me. But just really not fully understanding what parenthood looked like at being an older mother and also having like a full-time career at a C level. It was quite an interesting journey, I think, but I've really learned how to like navigate it and starting to learn how to prioritize my work-life balance and family. So it's been a fun journey, but it has been a very challenging journey, I would say.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Really fascinating. I hear from more and more moms who I work with through Mindful Return that they are often having children at a point where they've already had a long and illustrious and established career. And there's some serious identity shift that goes on at that point when you've really established yourself and now also have this other dimension to add. So thank you for speaking to that piece. Over to you, Radhika. Can you tell us a little bit about your working parent story, please?
Yeah, I had my first child in 2014. Feels like ages ago. I mean, I really feel that it was so different. Like now there's more acceptance around having taking time off for kids. And that time I was trying to act strong, not show that, okay, I'm taking a pumping break and whatnot. But I felt that was so unnatural. I'm glad that things have drastically changed in the last 7 years. And so happy to see this, like where moms are coming out and very open about it. But back then in 2014, I was least prepared for parenthood. I had maximum amount of support from my husband. I married my college sweetheart, and I totally attribute my journey as a mom and to my husband, who really supported me through all the difficult times at work, at home, through the sleep deprivations. I was quite irritable sometimes because of lack of sleep, but he was so supportive throughout. Both were in tech jobs, so life was quite demanding, and I can sometimes I feel like a shiver runs down my spine when I remember those days where multiple cups of coffee used to keep me awake through the work and then, the tough times in the night. I am quite glad the way things have changed over the past years and where there is acceptance for work-life balance more than ever.
Thank you for sharing that, Radhika. And I know Jason and I can, we also have the shivers down our spine when we think about those early days. And thank you for sharing openly. We are all irritable when we don't get sleep because we're human. Yes. And definite common problem among new parents. I recall at one point having gotten so little sleep that I dropped my children off at daycare, went home, took a nap, and then went to work. So we just try to get it in as much as we can, for sure. Radhika, let's stick with you for a minute. Can you describe a little bit about what it's like to be a parent CEO? Because this is a big role, and you have small people in your house.
Yes. As you can imagine, it's like my husband is my co-founder, and it's almost become like a family business where our kids are also part of the journey. It is actually quite tough to sometimes segregate that this is my work and then this is my personal life, because it's kind of become like a family business now without sometimes with the work and the amount of goals that you set for yourself. It is very easy to tip off the balance. But then we both consciously make choice to say, okay, we need to take a break, and this is our evening time, this is our work time. So it's just a conscious decision to always segregate those two. As a working mom CEO, I feel that we as moms have a beautiful gift of able to de-stress ourselves with kids. Because if it's a job, I'm not saying that job is easy, but what I'm saying is that when you are the CEO, there's a pressure to be always available because you don't want to be the bottleneck for some decision that's being taken. So there's inevitably you are always online. That can take a hit on your balance. But with kids and with family, automatically it kind of forces you to switch off. And I feel that's good because it acts as a checkpoint. You get enough rest. You don't take knee-jerk reactions. I totally love this, where in the evenings I'm in the park with my kids and I'm totally feel like I have refreshed versus just a burnout where I'm working like continuously 24/7. Sometimes as CEOs, you tend to overwork or try to be present all the time. In a way, I'm very happy with managing my work and life together.
Thank you for that beautiful answer, Radhika. Yeah. Jason and I are laughing at the family business. We have a son who's like, maybe I'll take over your career coaching clients one day. And, Mommy, I'm going to have my wife sign up for your class when she has a baby and comes back to work. So we got that. Thank you. I also think that you just described a very beautiful example of a phenomenon that Dr. Yael Schönbrunn calls work-life enrichment, where we often think of work and life being in tension with one another and competing with one another for finite resources. But in fact, they can enrich one another because the pausing and the stopping to be with our kids makes us better at the day job. So thank you for sharing that story. Christian, how about you? How would you say that, what is life like as a parent CEO for you?
Radhika hit on a lot of great points. And I think it's really interesting because it really is finding that balance. And I just resonated with me when she talked about sometimes feeling like you're never off, you're always on and you're trying to live up to expectation and make sure you're doing the best for your company and the role and mission for your organization. And also doing the best for your child or your children and doing the best as a parent. So it really is figuring out, like, how do I find this balance? And also still owning your own ownership of yourself, like not forgetting about Christian in the process, not forgetting that I still have my own identity, my own hobbies, my own goals. And like, how do you navigate that space in a healthy way? How do I navigate that space where I don't feel like I'm failing anything? And so it's a constant, just really trusting yourself. And for me, and trusting myself that I'm doing the best in every role that I'm doing and taking breaks and when I need to take breaks and knowing I deserve to take those breaks. I'm a hard worker. So when I have to take a break, I have to take a break. So there is the afternoon where I'm like, it's not going to be at 7 o'clock night tonight, or nope, I can't do this event. I need to pass on this. Sometimes you have to do those things for yourself, because if you burn, if I burn both ends of my wick, then what do I have left? I don't have anything left for my son. I don't have anything left for me. So I have really worked hard, especially I would say in the last year, to get to the point where I'm really balancing, where I take time to just disconnect and spend time with my child, and I take time to disconnect and sometimes go out with some of my friends, and just enjoy their company as well, because it's important to just not lose those parts of you and know you still can do a great job in your role as CEO.
Christian, I love your commitment to self-care and the way that you've evolved and described that. I think that's just so important. You had talked earlier about having support in your new role. What workplace supports did you find particularly helpful as you became a working parent?
So it's really interesting. I work for National Organization for Women. And so we already are invested into women's equality and things like that. So one of the things when I first started out, when my son was an infant, is every time I had to travel, my son came with me. And it was accepted. Like, my board members loved him. Everyone loved him. Everyone embraced my child. It's kind of like accepted culture within the organization that when you have a child, sometimes a child comes along. My mother is extreme support. He calls her Yeye, not grandma, but and she's kind of like grandma nanny kind of,
Nice.
So she's very helpful when I'm working. So I would take them and I would say, okay, we are going here, and book their tickets, and then we would go wherever I have to travel. And so it's just a nice part of everyone understanding and that I had this newborn and I had these things, and just embracing that was very helpful as I was transitioning into this role with this organization. And then as I've become the president, I've added some extra supports, I think, that are really helpful for overall for all parents as they need support, especially through this pandemic, because we're dealing with children having to work, be at school, be at home, do remote learning, parents having to adjust their schedules. So, we're really trying to work with a hybrid model, really trying to embrace parents, just being a little bit more flexible with their time because of school and remote. And also we've put in a room in the office that is actually a place now that, mothers can nurse or anyone has any space they need to address, they need to have a personal issue, that can be addressed now. We have an office dedicated to that at the office now. So these are some things I just noticed that were important to me. And as we go forth, we're adding in some different just days that we offer our staff, flex days for mental health and wellness.
This is why it's so important to have working parents as leaders, because they see the things and then they make the change. I'm also just thinking back to how many business trips I took where I took Jason and our first son along, and that lasted until he became 2, and then we had to pay for an extra plane ticket, and then I had a second kid and was like, maybe not. So I think our first child did a ton more traveling. But as people return to work travel after COVID, I think it's so important to remember that there is the option often of bringing a child, and maybe your organization or your employer will even, support that and help you find childcare in the location where the meeting is or whatever.
Yes, we used care.com when I was traveling. They would use that for me. Yes.
That's great. Radhika, what workplace supports did you find particularly helpful as you became a working CEO?
Yes, Jason. So I feel even before my baby was born, the pregnancy itself was the point where I needed support, right? I had immense amount of morning sickness and I was on bed rest towards my 6th and 7th month of pregnancy. So it was a surprise for me that so much is going to happen over the next 9 months. So having a very honest conversation with your manager, getting him on board or her on board. And it's not that you just need some amount of flexibility during those times, and having some honest conversations with the manager really helped. And the support from my manager was immense. I was one of the lucky ones. I know not every pregnant mom has the story, but yes, I got a lot of support from my manager during those tough days. This was much, much before COVID, right? When I was on bed rest for 8 weeks, they graciously granted me a work from home during those tough 2 months. So yes, I really got support from the company that I was working for those the surprising moments of pregnancy. So yes, I would advise working moms to go and talk to your managers, to your HR department, have honest conversations about your situation and demand some amount of flexibility so that you are not choosing one or the other. It's just that you need some adjustments during that period.
Radhika, I love what you've said there, because often when I'm coaching on negotiation, I often frame it as starting a conversation. And I think you're completely right that you're not starting just one conversation, but a series of conversations. And good for you for speaking up and asking for those very important things.
Thanks also for mentioning that not everyone has that experience. There's this phrase, winning the manager lottery, when you go out on parental leave. It sounds like you did win and you had a good manager. We've heard any number of stories from folks who did not have a manager who was as empathetic as they had hoped. And I do think that there's a place for manager training around how to, deal with people who are going out on parental leave, and would that one day there are more consistent responses by managers.
That's a great point. Radhika, what supports didn't you have, but you think other parents might benefit from, thinking back to when you became a working parent?
I feel that my maternity leave was too less. I had 84 days of maternity leave. I have to admit, I was in India back then. So we had 84 days of maternity leave. For some reason, I was not ready on the 85th day to start work because I had decided to breastfeed my child exclusively for 6 months. And that was a bit worrying for me, that pumping and then dropping the child at daycare and then picking up, because for first 4 weeks, I was just staring at the computer screen, unable to concentrate, just thinking about my baby, if she's fine. So we did not have like a daycare close to work or in-house. I really feel that would have changed the game completely if we had if the company had a daycare in-house. I would have been able to concentrate more on work and be less worried during my work hours.
Absolutely. On-site daycare, gosh, that's something I definitely aspire to one day for many, many workplaces.
This episode of the Parents at Work podcast is brought to you by Ready, Set, Launch, a boutique career coaching firm that supports executives in career and retirement transitions, as well as building their professional services practices. I'm Jason Levin, and I've been supporting executives achieving their goals in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors for the past 10 years. Based on those experiences, I decided to write a book called Relationships to Infinity: The Art and Science of Keeping in Touch. We say keep in touch, but we struggle to do so. I wrote this book so that my readers could have proven research-based tactics to keep in touch and reap all the benefits. I'm excited about this book, and I know that you will too. Head over to readysetlaunch.net or connect with me on LinkedIn to learn more about the book. Be happy to learn more about your goals and your organization and how there might be a fit. Again, head over to readysetlaunch.net to get back in touch. Now, back to our episode. Christian, workplace supports thing you have that you think other parents might benefit from?
I agree with Radhika. I think some type of on-site childcare would have been great. But even so, I think just more consideration about having a refrigerator completely dedicated to breast milk, things like that, where it was a little bit more private and would have been really helpful. Because, those type of things I think people don't really think about. And sometimes when your company maybe hasn't had a mother has a newborn in a long time, it gets you forget about it, So, and as we kind of heard our history, I'm one of the youngest, I am the youngest CEO president and in 40 something years in our company. So I'm probably the first one to come in a while with a newborn and a young child. And so I think that sometimes we can forget that although we may not necessarily be going through something, we still need to make sure that our staff and everyone else is provided those things because they may be having that lived experience. So for me, a nice refrigerator where I could have stored, nursing my milk, or essentially also acknowledging I need a little bit more break times to handle something in addressing those things between meetings and things like that. I think that's where we're talking about how do we incorporate provisions that accompany parents, whether it's do they need to go leave to pick up their child from daycare or from school, and allowing that and not making it seem like they're less productive because they can come back, but they may be important for them. It's important to me every morning I take my son to school. And I work my meetings around that. Sometimes I'm in the meeting in the car before I even get home or back to the office, but that's an important thing. So I think sometimes just acknowledging that parents don't need to sacrifice being parents, and we can make provisions and talk to parents and kind of have a parenting plan with their work plan. I think it could be something that we can start incorporating more that can be really successful for working parents.
You're hitting on something really important. I think it came up in our Moms and Government Relations segment where they were talking about meetings that were happening at the White House after 5 o'clock. And so only certain people were available to be able to go to those meetings at 5 or 6 or 7 in the evening. just having the awareness to schedule them earlier. I completely agree. So I want to stay with you, Christian. As a career coach, I'm going to put my career hat on. So what career-related skills do you think parenthood has helped you grow and helped you grow as a CEO?
Wow. I would definitely say, this may sound totally funny, but it probably is very accurate. I think just navigating personalities. And I said this because I have a toddler, right?
Multiple personalities in any given hour, probably. Right.
Toddlers, they go through that mood. They're like happy, smile, sad, cry, in like 30 seconds now. But when I say that, I mean, just understanding, everyone's coming from a different place. And so having a toddler, just understanding like the difference of their mood and what they're dealing with and how sometimes they have a hard time communicating how they're feeling. It's really helped me in my role to understand that sometimes even as adults, we are the same way. Although I may be excelling at something or be able to communicate it very effectively, I may have a staff who may not be comfortable doing that. Or I may have a staff who has had a bad experience in another area, so they don't feel they have that ability to come up to, and I have an open door policy. So my staff are pretty good with coming to me, but some of them still don't feel comfortable because of maybe a past experience or whatever. Just, really honoring my open door policy. But I think it's just really helped me understanding that we're all coming from a different place a little bit more and being more open to just recognize that when I'm communicating and understanding where people are coming from and why they're coming from the direction or asking a little bit more questions. Like, what's going on? What is the reason why this may not be working out? What is the reason why we're experiencing this, instead of just making assumptions? Just really understanding that people are coming from different experiences a little bit better and having more patience, my approach. And I'm a pretty patient person, but overall, I think, it's really helped me grow in that area. And so having a toddler is really giving me that extra strength of looking at people and going in that direction.
Practice every single day on the emotional intelligence skills.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
You're talking about empathy and patience. It's the daily exercise.
Yes.
Exercise. Radhika, same question.
Christian, ditto. I totally second that like if you can deal with toddler tantrums, you are ready. I mean, the amount of patience that has developed after being a mom is like incredible. All thanks to the kids training, I would say. Yes, I really feel that as moms or as a working mom, there's a step shift, right? From being the carefree, just you and your husband managing your life. It's almost like you're leading a bachelor life to now a shift in your lifestyle. It's a step shift. And that after managing all of that, managing ambiguity at work or managing a dynamic and fast-paced environment of work, my ability changed to handle that ambiguity, which the work demanded. So definitely, I always say that like if I have 2 kids, I mean, and my 3rd kid is my startup, but after managing 2 kids, I think so I am ready for anything.
Yes, if any of us ever thought we had any sense of control over anything, that quickly went out the window when we had children, for sure. Right before the podcast recording started, Jason and I were reflecting on the idea that since you are both CEOs, you both have a microphone of sorts and a position where people are looking up to you. And what we were wondering is, as a mom CEO, what do you see as your role in shaping the conversation that's happening around working parenthood?
Lori, that's a great question. And I think the biggest role I see as a working mom and a CEO mom is to shape the conversation that you can have both, especially as a working mother and a CEO mother. I think sometimes, society, we accept and expect fathers to be CEO fathers, and we acknowledge that. But sometimes when it comes to CEO mothers, sometimes we start kind of questioning like where they're either sacrificing or in areas. And it's like, you don't have to sacrifice in any area. And you can choose to have both. You can choose to run a company and be a CEO, and you can choose to be a mother and have both and be happy at both. I'm really working on that shift and that belief in that narrative, because it's so important that we also embrace and don't put that pressure on women as well to ask them questions or say microaggressions like, or gender microaggressions like, you're not going to have any more kids, are you? Or,
No, sorry. No, we're just both over here going, eek, bleh.
Right. But these are some of the questions that CEO moms experience, like it's like people sometimes assume that you can't possibly be effective being a CEO and also having a mom, especially to a younger child. And so it's just like really getting people to understand is that, yes, you can, and I can choose both and be successful at doing both. It's how I balance. And also if for everyone else to embrace that I can do both and not create more barriers in the process. And so I think it's kind of constantly navigating that conversation. And so when people say things like that, it's saying, no, I'm choosing both and I'm doing it well at doing both, but really constantly bring those conversations to the table and having those conversations, because it's really easy. Just real quick, I'll say this and I'll wrap up. As one of the things we think about too is, like now we're pushing for things like paid family medical leave and childcare, universal childcare, and all these things can be really supportive of supporting CEO mothers, because a lot of times that falls back on a lot of times the working mother. Not that working fathers don't do these things, I'm not saying that, but a lot of times those things are. So if we put more value sometimes in how we balance out parenting and family and what we put forth and pass in our legislation and in our government, sometimes those things in itself can be supportive in the process of really changing the belief and the culture and the narrative that we see and hear.
Thank you for your advocacy in that area. Absolutely. I thank you also for pointing out the various microaggressions. And for anyone listening, I think a good litmus test is, would you ask a man the same question, right? Because if the answer is, well, I probably wouldn't, then it might be something you should think twice before asking.
As we've seen time and time again, and as we've listened here, you don't get any less smart because you've had a child. You actually become better because you've had a child.
So let's keep telling that story and shouting it from the rooftops. Yes. Love the choosing both. Okay, Radhika, over to you. What do you see as your role as a mom CEO in shaping these conversations?
I would like to share a tidbit here, like from my personal journey when I was fundraising during my angel round in a room full of, investors. I did get asked a question of this sort that, your kids are young. And then I was questioned about my ability to grow the business at the same time, be a mom, or like how many hours I would be able to dedicate. So I was quite unprepared for that question when I was asked, and and I felt cornered for a moment. I don't know why that expectation is from working moms or CEO moms that you have to choose between one or the other. I guess, as Jason said, that, parenthood makes you much more of a balanced person, a multitasker, and more capable to handle ambiguity. So I did experience that as part of startup. And I know two other women founder CEO moms who actually were like fundraising and did not, because in the COVID times, it was like, it made it easier because it was just Zoom calls. You were the kind of expecting, but it was easier for them to just pitch over a Zoom call because you're like not going with your big belly and pitching to investors. And later, we were in contact, but I know that it can become a big diversion or it becomes an input for the other person or an investor when they are, now this person is going to suddenly go off for a maternity leave. It kind of invariably changes the mindset. And I don't know how that can change, right? Because it's a life event. It's not that you have to choose between one or the other. I don't know what's the solution for that.
And I find the irony in the question because you founded a company called Cradlewise, where you yourself are your own target audience, and they're asking you if you can grow the company. It's
ironical, right?
It is illustrative of why so few female-founded companies end up getting funding, and percentage of money that goes to investment in women-owned companies is ridiculously small. So thank you for being a leader in this space, Radhika, and thank you for plowing forward and dealing with those tough questions.
Christian, back to you and our closeout questions. This has been it's been an illustrative discussion. I've really enjoyed this. What's your one best piece of advice for navigating life as a working parent, your number one book, and your number one piece of technology?
Ooh. I'll have to think about the book, but I guess for my piece of advice is what I would do. I'm really big on like goal setting and just like really sitting down. And I would just encourage everyone to sit down and kind of identify, what are the goals that you have for yourself as a CEO? What do they look like? And, and what time commitment are those on? And, and what steps you take to get there. And then what goals do you have for yourself as a parent, and as a mother? And what does that look like? And what time commitment does that take? And look at it and then put it out. Like, so how do you balance these things? Like, how do you, and then also I would always don't forget yourself. And then what do you have for your personal goals and your personal self? And then figure out like, how do you balance where you can give to, you're going to get to your job because that's like automatic, right? Because, you have to work. But then also figure out like, how do you also make sure you're giving to yourself and then also giving to your child or your children every day or every week, even if it's like a short amount of time. What is something that you do just to give to those things that are important to you every day or every time? And then when you have more time, give more time. If it's like just maybe spending 10 minutes a day reading, playing a game with your child, because that's the time you have for that day. But on the weekends, like we do, my son and I love to go out and do like our farms and outdoor activities and, zoos and things like that. And we have more day trip time. We can go on these trips, but just figuring out how do you build that into and it doesn't have to be so rigid, but just how do you give to all those areas and prioritize those things that are important for you and whatever space and whatever that is in all that way. So it's holistic and round. And then as for a book, I would have to really think on the book right now, honestly. So I'll have to come back to that one.
No worries.
And as for
you're a mom of a 2-year-old and a CEO, we don't expect that there are.
I actually moved. I started doing audiobooks, right? Audible.
Sounds Christian.
Audible is beautiful. I started doing that. And as for advice, just my smartphone is my everything. So it has all my calendars, personal and work, everything together. It has my Audible on there. It has his videos on there. It's just everything. So that is my one piece of tech that I use for life. So.
And I love, Christian, how you talk about goals first, goals for yourself, goals for your time. That it sounds like you've got a wonderful set of intentions as you're going through all of this. So kudos to you. Radhika, same questions. What is your number one best piece of advice for navigating life as a working parent, number one book, and number one piece of technology?
In terms of managing work as a mom, I feel that having a schedule is very important because it's like you have to do everything, right? Like you have to be up to date with latest technology, with changes, also perform at work, also sleep for 8 hours, concentrate on nutrition, spend time with kids. These are like so many. I don't think there's one person who can do everything well. So first coming to terms as to what's your priority and having a schedule really helped. I have a time on Saturday where I want to read about a particular topic, which I have been postponing for that week. I keep those 2 or 3 hours separate and I demand that time for myself to invest in learning. So having that understanding between you and your partner and scheduling time has really worked for me, because then sometimes there was a point in my career where I was compressing my sleep to do more, and it started adversely affecting my health and my mental balance. So that's when I realized that I need to allocate time for everything that I want to do, so that it's so easy to throw sleep out of the window, right? Because that's your easiest hack as a mom to compensate for whatever you feel is you are lacking at. That has worked for me, scheduling time and planning the day properly. Your second question was, Jason, the book. I mean, my daughter, no guesses, like my daughter was a very light sleeper, and that's how Cradlewise started. So I was reading a lot about sleep, because back in 2014, it was quite we were monitoring ourselves with the Fitbits of the world and stuff. And somewhere intuitively, I knew that, the baby sleep is so important. It's the formative years. I was reading a lot about sleep because we both were paranoid about our sleep and the baby's sleep. But in terms of one book that really helped me was Welcome to Your Child's Brain by Sam Wang and Sandra Ament. I understood a few things about how kids learn, and that helped me in navigating a few challenges, like why a kid is not doing something and not forcing your style of parenting on the kid, where they explain a very important concept that for a child, different aspects of their personality open up at different point of time in life for them. Like for girls, the scientific or observing mechanisms, that kind of ability develops slightly later compared to boys. Or the pretend play for boys develops much later compared to girls. So understanding these faculties that open up at different times in the brain for kids is very important for parents, because then you have to look for them when they open and catch that window. That was quite an interesting fact that I understood after reading this book.
That's amazing.
And in terms of piece of technology, I'm biased. That's why we developed Cradlewise. But
you're allowed to have your own product as your favorite piece of technology, Radhika. I would be sort of upset if you didn't have that as your favorite.
If that is not the definition of innovation, I don't know what it is.
So for sleep, we did not find something that like the baby products that were there, and that's what motivated us. We saw that white space, and I truly believe the next pieces of solutions for our kids will come from parents themselves, because I don't think the big corporate baby product companies understand how kids develop and what are the requirements of parents. I think so. It's a big responsibility for us as parents to develop solutions for our kids going ahead.
Wonderful.
Been incredible. And, both of you have talked about time as an asset. And Lori and I really appreciate both of your time today, because a very rich conversation, and loving hearing how you have had your professional journeys to CEOs and also as your parent journey and that intersection between the two. Thank you both.
You heard it here, folks. CEO moms, they sleep and they take care of themselves. I want to sort of shout that from the rooftops. And the other thing I want to say to both of you as we close out here is that representation matters, and hearing your real life amazing mom CEO stories is really inspiring, because it makes it tangible. It's like, oh, these women, they have children, they have kick-ass careers, they're leaders in their space, and they're human. And so can we all be. And so thank you for shining the light on that path and being the leader for us that says, yeah, it's a normal and amazing and wonderful and cool thing for moms to be CEOs. So thank you, Christian. Thank you, Radhika, for that.
Thank you for providing this platform.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Jason, for having me. And thank you, Christian. I really wish more leadership positions are with working moms and working parents, so that, it's a better workplace for parents.
Amen.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure sharing the space with you today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Thank you to all of you who are listening. This is the Parents at Work podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please send it to one friend who you think would be inspired by it. We would also love if you would rate and review it on whatever place you happen to locate this podcast. And please stay tuned for our next episode with CEO Dads coming up next. Until then, take care.